We got so many great topics lined up for you today on Retiring Well. First, we're going to be starting off with a client story of some folks that were watching our television show, and they called in with some old 401k accounts they had forgotten they even had and wanted to know what to do with that. Then Ashley is going to join us and talk about what happens to your money when you pass away, the importance of those beneficiary designations, some estate planning topics, and stuff that you should be considering for yourself. Then Jack and Joe are going to join us, and they're going to be talking about how bonds work. For years, individuals may be holding bonds or fixed income in their portfolios. How do those actually work, and are they beneficial for you? And to wrap up the show, Virgil has a unique topic here talking about hidden gems in northern Michigan. Some areas maybe you've heard of, and some maybe you haven't, and how that all comes back to your retirement planning. All that and so much more coming up right here, right now on Retiring Well.
Retiring Well, brought to you by Centennial Wealth Advisory, financial advisors specializing in retirement planning and serving all of northern Michigan. Retiring Well, helping you plan for a successful and comfortable retirement. Retiring Well, plan to retire well.
Art and I would like to take a moment here and talk to you a little bit about old accounts. A lot of times we come across folks where, hey, I think I had an account with this employer or that employer, but I don't really remember. I don't know what happened to it. It's somewhat become commonplace. I know last week I was talking to some folks and we kept uncovering, oh, they had this account and that account. Well, you worked there. Did you have an account there? Yeah, I had contributed for 6 months or whatever it was. And all of a sudden they're like, whoa, I have more money than I thought I had. And so you can uncover some things when you maybe forget about some of those old accounts. I know you're sitting on a stack of paperwork in front of you there, so I'm sure there's a story that goes along with it.
Right. It's a very interesting story, and I think it probably resonates with a lot of individuals in it, and kind of to what you said. This gentleman come to us, him and his wife, they had both worked, they were in their early 40s, and they had both been at jobs for a long time. She was at a hospital, and he was at a factory sort of thing, and had worked there for many years. Now they come to us just south of Ludington. They'd been watching the show for years and stuff like that. And, you know, kind of in his mind, he's like, well, I don't even have a retirement account. I don't have a retirement plan yet. He had 401ks. He had worked for this place. Now he had since left then. And so he had this old 401k there that he kind of just literally in his mind kind of checked out of. Money went into it. Somebody had picked accounts for him years ago, you know, investments. He had no idea what they were invested in, and he just knew it was there. But in his mind, it's like, well, that's there until I retire. I'm not old enough to touch it, all this sort of stuff. Well, fast forward a few years, he is working with a different company. They don't offer a 401k plan. He likes his career and his job now, but it just didn't happen. We started talking about this account. And he's like, well, let me find a statement. Couldn't even get logged into his account because it had been so long since he had touched it. And come to find out, they had $250,000 in this account. And he's like, oh my gosh. And now it starts to feel like real money, right? And so the story goes on, we help and we start working on this, and I uncover, you know, this multiple pages of statements. And every time there's like a dividend or interest payment back in, they buy more funds, reinvesting. Well, this 401k plan, because he wasn't an active employee anymore, was charging a fee on every transaction. So every time a dividend hit this account, he's getting charged a service fee. So we start looking back, returns are suffering, all this sort of stuff. And now it starts kind of to be the fun part of coming in, building this retirement plan and seeing what this significant sum of money can do for them and going on in life. Now they're starting to talk about, hey, what does it look like if we retire in 10 years? What does it look like if we start doing other investments? And they kind of now have this rejuvenated excitement about their own retirement dreams.
Right. And so a couple things that I pulled out of that are the investment structure. A lot of times people, maybe they set their retirement plan and they pick whatever investments they're going to go into and ultimately somewhat forget about it. And that goes on. And that maybe that's with your current employer that you did that 5, 10, 20 years ago. You set some type of investment structure and said, okay, yep, I'll retire whenever, and you haven't revisited that. That's an opportunity, we would say, where we would encourage you to give us a call. Let us sit down with you, help analyze what you're invested in, and sort of show you that. Because a lot of times people get surprised by what that really looks like, and maybe a different either risk structure or may not be necessarily what we would consider maybe the best structure to have invested, depending on the time frame that you're working with. The other piece of that you mentioned were the fees involved. Within maybe those old retirement plans, just like this client came across as, oh, there's fees every time that funds were being reinvested as from the old employer plan, and those tally up pretty quickly over time, and you want to be aware of that. So the investment structure, the fees, there's again a lot more that should be considered, but those were a couple key points that I pulled.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of time left for these individuals. That's the piece there. That's a large sum of money to be sitting there for the next 20 years, kind of unsupervised, if you will, right? With no real direction, not knowing it, as I joked about, and we laughed about it afterwards with the client, of not even knowing his logon to get into this. They weren't sending statements anymore because he probably had checked some, I'll get e-statements, and he just hasn't paid attention. And I feel like this isn't abnormal anymore, where we, as John talked about when kind of opening this segment up here, is these folks are cutting into where they just are unaware of what's going on about that. So if you feel like this is you out there, or you got this old account, you don't know what to do, but it doesn't, just take some time. Give us a call, visit our website, get a free consultation so we can help you plan to retire well and see how that account can help fast track your retirement dreams for you so you can plan to retire well.
After more than a decade of stock market growth, volatility jolted investors back to the harsh reality of occasional market pullbacks in the investing cycle. Download our free white paper, Navigating Market Volatility. It's all about perspective, for an in-depth analysis of historic lessons and time-tested investment strategies. Simply go to cen-wealth.com, scroll down and click the link Navigating Market Volatility. It's all about perspective, to receive your free copy of this valuable and informative resource. What is your plan to not run out of money? Is your safe portfolio actually safe? Are you prepared for the fundamental transition to retirement? What are the benefits of tax loss harvesting? Do you have a local financial planning team? If you are retired or nearing retirement, we invite you to an informative live event to help you plan to retire well. Call 888-608-5825 or register online to reserve your seats today. Don't miss this important live event to help you plan to retire well.
Talking about death is never fun, but not talking about it could cost your loved ones time, money, and their peace. So what happens to your legacy if you don't have a will in place? Let's deep dive into that a little bit. So when you die without a will, it's something called intestate, where the state actually steps in. Your assets go through probate, and the courts decide legally where your assets go. So if you're married and you think it's just going to naturally go on to my wife or husband, that might not be the case. If you have a child from a previous marriage, or maybe you have a previous marriage, it could go to others. Your assets could be entitled to them as well. And if you're single, it could go to next of kin. So that would mean your aunt or uncle, it could mean your parents, it could mean your siblings, could mean that cousin that you haven't seen since 2002. Now I had a couple come in for a routine review meeting in the Traverse City office, and they brought in a letter, and basically it said that his uncle had passed away, hadn't talked to him in 20 years, but he was next of kin. So it really does happen. And then if there's no family that they can find, the state actually comes in and takes your assets. So here's what a will actually does. It does not bypass probate, unfortunately, but it does create a blueprint for the court system to abide by that makes the process a lot more smooth. And it also decides, you can decide where your assets go in that will, which is your property, it could be your sentimental items, it could be your assets like your money, and then naming a guardian. If you have a minor child, you could name a guardian to your child, even a dog, honestly. And then you could also choose an executor of your estate. So you could choose an executor that will divide out all of your assets. So without one, your family is stuck navigating that red tape while they're trying to grieve. So here's a part that most people don't realize as well, is there's a way to completely bypass probate, and that's in the form of a ladybird deed or beneficiaries on your investments. Now, a ladybird deed is also called an enhanced life estate deed, and this entails beneficiaries on your property. So when there's beneficiaries on your property, you have full control up until your death, and then it goes on to that person that you had named beneficiary, and without probate involved. So it's a beautiful thing. Some states do not allow this, so Michigan is definitely one of them. If you're not residing in this state, then I would definitely check with your state. Now, listing of beneficiaries on your investment accounts. This is a 5-minute task, and it's so important because then it names who's going to get these assets, who do I want to, even a charity if you don't have next of kin that you would like to have these assets go to. There's charities that you could send this to as well. We are happy to talk with you on your beneficiaries in one of our Northern Michigan locations for a free consultation. So give us a call today. And you've worked really hard on your legacy. You don't want to see it go into the hands of someone that doesn't deserve it. And if the topic was very interesting to you, please feel free to go to our YouTube channel, like and subscribe, because we have episodes that come out weekly and would love for you to get alerts each week. So to wrap things up, there's 3 things that you can do to protect your assets today, and that's creating a simple will, and this is very easy to do to bypass some of those legal fees that your family would have if they go through probate. Or ask about a ladybird deed. Ladybird deeds can be a beneficiary basically on your property and can completely bypass probate. And then check on your beneficiaries. If you're not sure about your beneficiaries on your investment accounts, please make sure that you check on this. So to make a plan, leave clarity, not confusion, and that's the legacy you really want to leave behind.
Finding a reputable business shouldn't require luck or chance. But how can you tell who you can trust? Pro tip: the BBB connects people with businesses they can trust. So think of the BBB as the better check with the BBB first, because better businesses are honest and commit to high ethical standards bureau. That's why they're better. Always look for the sign of a better business and find a better business anytime at bbb.org.
When it comes to your financial future, what's the value of a truly objective opinion? As someone looking for financial guidance, you have choices. There are thousands of captive financial professionals who work as employees for large national insurance companies and brokerages. There are also many independent financial professionals who aren't bound to any given insurance company, investment strategy, or product. So what's the difference, and why does it really matter to you? Consider this. If you walked into a doctor's office with a sore throat, a bad cough, and a high fever, you'd expect that doctor to assess your symptoms, do a thorough diagnosis, and ultimately hand you a prescription written to cure your particular ailment. In other words, you'd expect the doctor to consider all the medications available and give you his or her absolute best thinking on what's best for you. On the other hand, if that doctor opened the cupboard and only had 3 or 4 prescriptions available, maybe those offered by his or her favorite pharmaceutical rep, most patients would immediately raise an eyebrow, suspicious that they might not be getting what was really in their best interest. The same may be true for your financial well-being. If your financial professional is an employee who's contractually bound to represent a given insurance or investment company, only offering their products while there are literally hundreds of others available, how sure can you be that you're being offered what's truly best for your situation? You don't walk into a tailor or seamstress shop to get clothing off some rack. You go for a custom tailored fit. And with something as important as your financial future at hand, the stakes are even higher. We believe you deserve a truly objective opinion. We think you deserve to consider more of the available options. And we believe your financial future is worth a custom-tailored prescription to help you feel confident for the days ahead. If you'd like a second opinion on your current retirement strategy, simply contact our office today.
Living life isn't always easy. It puts up challenges and obstacles you'll have to overcome. There are responsibilities. You put in effort to provide and take care of your family, to save and invest, to balance work and life. Planning is the first step to succeeding. Plan to retire well.
Today, we're going to spend some time talking about the bond market. Jack's going to join me and we're going to do a little bit of role play where you're going to play the role of a client and I'll do what I normally do on a day-to-day basis. And I think it's important to explore this area of the market in the fixed income segment, because a lot of times when we're looking at equity volatility, we tend to go to the bonds. And unfortunately, I don't think a lot of people have a good understanding of how the fixed income market works. And they sort of have the wrong expectations going into these places in the market.
Well, for sure. And if you think about it, I mean, how many times do they get to be told, hey, are you in a 60-40 portfolio, right? Those are your options. You know, let's go to the bond market, let's go to the stock market, fixed income, equity, and that's what they've been, you know, preached about, especially in 401ks and that kind of through it. And they have no idea that there's other options even outside of those bond and stock markets. But specifically speaking, I think it'd be fun. Yeah, I'll just ask some questions.
Absolutely.
And be the client here. So what is a bond? What's fixed income? What does that mean?
Yeah, so the biggest thing I would say is there's different types of bonds. So just like stocks, there's large cap, mid cap, small cap bonds. There's government bonds. There's fixed income bonds. There's I bonds. There's a bunch of different types of bonds. They all function a little bit differently. Corporate bonds, and they have different risks to them. So when we're looking at bonds first, we have to be careful which ones we're looking at, because they're all going to carry a little bit different level of risk, and they're all going to work a little bit differently as far as how they pay coupon payments, as well as tax as well. You know, so we have to think about municipal bonds. Do those fit into a portfolio? So when we say fixed income, that's a very big $1 trillion asset class, and there's a lot of different directions we can go with that.
So if somebody comes in and says, oh yeah, I'm the client, sorry. So I have bonds in my portfolio. You know, is there any way for us to figure out if they're good bonds, bad bonds? Is there such a thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So every bond has a rating to it, you know, so you can be a AAA all the way down to a D bond. So which would be more of our junk bond. So a lot of times when we do investment analytics, we run these Morningstar reports. So if we look at a mutual fund as an example, that might have a stock bond mix to it. Well, what Morningstar will allow us to kind of see is inside that bond piece, what type of bonds do we actually have? What's the credit rating? What's the risk to that bond portfolio? And I think that's the biggest thing people miss is bonds aren't a risk-free investment. They do carry risks with them. So we want to be careful with that when we're thinking about retirement planning. So we have a system that helps us measure risk. So a 1 would be like cash, 99 would be Bitcoin. A lot of times bond portfolios fall in this kind of 25-30. So think of that like a speed limit, you know, 25-30. If we're driving downtown Traverse City, that's okay. You can probably stop. You're not going to run over at your risk. You might want to, but we probably shouldn't. But if you're doing 25 or 30 in Meyer parking lot, that's a different level of risk to it. So not risk-free investment. We do need to be careful where we own them and how we're using them.
Now, what about in the interest rate environment that we're in and just went through? How do interest rates affect bonds?
Yeah, so interest rates and bonds have this inverse correlation. So when interest rates go up, bond prices go down. And the reason for that is if I'm wanting interest as an example, you know, so I'm going to go out and I want to buy a 10-year Treasury bond that's paying 4%. There's going to be a lot of demand for that depending on what happens with interest rates. So that's going to affect the net asset value of that bond price. So interest rates play a big role in how bonds are priced and how they're going to change on a day-to-day basis. So if we're in an interest rate rising environment, our bond prices aren't going to do very well. And if we're in retirement pulling income from that, we might be pulling income from places that are actually going down in value.
So what about the duration? How does duration of a bond then play into, how the position of that bond might want to look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So duration is how we measure risk in a bond portfolio. So if we have a duration of 10 as an example, if there's a 1% increase in interest rates, there'll be a 10% drop in that bond price. So that's a pretty big volatility scale. So
I thought bonds were safe.
no, that's the biggest thing is bonds are not safe. So bonds have interest rate risk. They have credit risk. We want to be careful with that. We want to measure how that plays into your investment portfolio. To give you context, the U.S. aggregate bond index has a duration of 6. So if interest rates go up 1%, your aggregate bond index will go down about 6%. So that's the biggest challenge, I think, when we're looking at portfolios is bonds aren't risk-free. We need to know how that fits into our overall investment portfolio. And when we think about that, how that overlays with our financial plan. If we're going to retirement, we need to be thinking about how we're going to pull income from our portfolio and where's the best place to structure these bonds and the best type of bonds to have. If you don't know where to get started with that analysis, please reach out to us. We have a lot of systems to help measure your risk tolerance. Build out that financial plan, and then look behind the scenes, the actual details in that portfolio to see where you maybe are overexposed with risk.
Centennial Wealth Advisory is expanding, and we are excited to add a new office in Manistee to better serve our growing family of clients. Our new office is located in the historic Briney Building in the center of idyllic downtown Manistee. Whether you are an existing client or would like to meet for the first time for your free, no-obligation initial consultation, we look forward to welcoming you in our new office or at any of our Northern Michigan locations in Traverse City, Gaylord, Petoskey, Cadillac, or Manistee.
When you have confidence in your retirement future, you can live the life you've always imagined. Because of planning, you now have time to reflect on the wonderful memories of your life. You and your spouse finally have the luxury of leisure time together. To spend fun times with your grandkids, sharing the joy of their excitement about life. Smiling at the thought of quality time with your children and of picking up the check. At last, you have time to breathe and rekindle the love of your life. Why? Because you imagined what could be. You planned for retirement. So today, you own your future.
After more than a decade of stock market growth, volatility jolted investors back to the harsh reality of occasional market pullbacks in the investing cycle. Download our free white paper, Navigating Market Volatility. It's all about perspective for an in-depth analysis of historic lessons and time-tested investment strategies. Simply go to cen-wealth.com, scroll down and click the link Navigating Market Volatility. It's all about perspective to receive your free copy of this valuable and informative resource.
The title of today's episode is Hidden Gems of Northern Michigan. We're going to discuss some places and things that make Northern Michigan unique. And these aren't necessarily in any order, but I'll start with the water. You've got Lake Michigan, Lake Charlevoix, Torch Lake, or any of the other thousands of lakes around Northern Michigan, not to mention all the crystal clear rivers as well. The water here in Northern Michigan makes it unique. If you are from the area or you've spent time in the area, that's evident just as you drive around and see all the beautiful lakes and waters. I like to fly fish myself, so I enjoy the rivers as well. Not everyone does, but that's something that is special to me. So the water is one major thing that makes Northern Michigan unique, and also is a little bit of a hidden gem. You can find those out of the way places, lakes maybe that aren't as popular as some of the ones that I listed. Something else are some of the places around Northern Michigan that make it unique. Mackinac Island, a great spot. A lot of people love to go up to in the summertime. The Tunnel of Trees in the fall. Beautiful drive if you've never done it. I think it's a great way to get out there and enjoy the fall leaf foliage, if you will, in Northern Michigan. Another thing is Sleeping Bear Dunes. I've been there multiple times, and it's really just a cool experience to be a part of, and to see all the people out and about and enjoying not only the lake, but the dunes there at Sleeping Bear Dunes. And then, of course, there's all the state parks all over Northern Michigan that allow you to be able to camp and just enjoy the hiking trails and so forth as well. And then I would say another thing people love about the summer in Michigan is camping and being out and enjoying nature. You also see that in the winter though too, with snowmobiling and snow ice fishing. Some people enjoy, as well as skiing, whether that's downhill or cross country skiing. So there are a lot of cool places and things to enjoy. Some maybe more hidden than others as far as hidden gems here in Northern Michigan. Fudge, cherries, Petoskey stones. I remember when I first moved here, I didn't know what a Petoskey stone was, and people were shocked. How do you not know? I'm like, sorry, I didn't know what a Petoskey stone was. But these are all kinds of fun and unique things that make Northern Michigan, Northern Michigan. So another thing though that I consider, and I'm gonna shift here to this, is to be a hidden gem, is our firm, Centennial Wealth Advisory. And that might sound like a stretch or surprising for me to say that, but let me give some context to that statement. Our firm is very unique. Our firm is based here in Northern Michigan. We now have 5 offices, including our corporate office here in Northern Michigan. That's unique. Most of your financial firms you'll find out there, they have their corporate offices based in New York or Chicago or St. Louis or other areas around the country. They have call centers in other areas of the country. But the fact that this is where we live and work and are part of the community here, that is in itself unique. The fact that we focus on relationship building, that when you call one of our offices, you talk to a human being. I know that can be super frustrating, not being able to get a hold of an actual person when you need help with one of your accounts. You know, our advisors here, we have our direct line extension listed in our email signature so that you're able to get a hold of us. That is unique. The fact that we take a holistic approach, we have an in-house accounting tax arm to our company so that we can help with tax planning along with investment planning. The fact that we help with health insurance and Medicare, these make us and our firm a very unique fit to what we have here in Northern Michigan. So I know I was having some fun with this episode and listing a lot of the hidden gems and unique parts about Northern Michigan. You probably didn't think a lot of the businesses maybe would be listed as unique, but I would put our firm, Centennial Wealth Advisory, right up there with being a unique and what I would call a hidden gem within Northern Michigan. Now, the clients who work with us now, they know us and they know that about us. But if you've been watching this show and you haven't had an opportunity to meet with us, I would highly encourage you to consider setting up a time to sit down with one of us so that you for yourself can decide if we are that unique and if we truly are a hidden gem of Northern Michigan. And so also we can help you plan to retire well.